I want to give you a programming note that's pretty extraordinary for the show. It happens tomorrow. We will have full post-debate analysis for you. Obviously, we're doing the live show tonight and then tomorrow as well. But we're having someone on the show who I've never spoken to directly before. Certainly not on my show. And it's someone I never, ever thought I would invite on my show. It's Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon and I have gone round and round for the better part of a decade now. All stemming from, speaking of presidential debates, that debate question that I asked President Trump August 6th, 2015, about how the Dems were going to hit him on women. As you know, that unleashed a firestorm that went on for the better part of a year, and no one fanned those flames more than Steve Bannon while at Breitbart. Frontline, which is a PBS program, which is excellent, I must say. As critical as I am of most media, this is an excellent program. Covered this in detail it was either 2018 or 19. And I participated in the program, and so did Steve. Here's a little bit of how that looked.
We run 20 stories on Megyn Kelly. I get Tony Lee and Matt Boyle, my two hammers. They go right after Megyn Kelly. We're going to Linsky her, right? We're going to pull her out from the herd and just hit her nonstop. That's when all war broke out. That's when Breitbart, that's when you had to choose sides.
In taking on Fox, Bannon and Trump were inciting the kind of conflict Breitbart readers thrived on.
She is a lowlife. We need to chop her off at the knees. Do not.
If you look at the comments section, these things are getting 10 and 15,000, 20,000 comments.
Megyn's a type for a quickie in the men's.
The whole Trump, all the Pepes, all these Trump guys were pounding in here.
Kelly needs to be put in her place, fast and hard. By all
it was scary at times. And Breitbart kept lighting the fire over and over. And, I had and have 3 young kids, really young kids, and the security threats were escalating. And we were doing everything in our power to convey to them that they needed to stop. It was one debate question, just one debate question. And he handled it fine, he did. So get off of it. And they couldn't have cared less.
Ailes calls me up and says, you got to knock off these stories. She's crying, she's all upset, she's getting death threats. I go, it sounds like a personal problem. I said, we're not backing off. We're gonna put more stories up tomorrow.
If Kelly...
I am really looking forward to this discussion about everything. He's about to go to jail. He's about to go to jail now on this absurd contempt of Congress finding. Merrick Garland's not going to go to jail. You only go to jail for contempt of Congress if you're a Republican, apparently, named Steve Bannon in particular. And we've come full circle with one another because I think we're fighting many, if not most, of the same fights these days. And I've just been really looking forward to actually speaking to him face to face. So anyway, tune in. Wanted to mention today that it's happening tomorrow, and we'll get his full reaction on the eve of going to prison and on the day after this presidential debate. Joining me again, my pals from the Fifth Column. Should be pretty extraordinary, no, guys?
Wow.
I mean, that's incredible. I can't remember when it was 2020, I suppose, that I sat down with Bannon. And it was the first time ever that I had to stop an interview because it went on too long. We were on 4 hours or something. The man can talk. And he is a brilliant guy who is wrong about so many things. And I say this from a sort of libertarian perspective. And, if you have the moment to ask him about his unmitigated praise for AOC with me. He was, loved AOC because she understood how to play class politics and she was good at it. The right was wrong for calling her a bartender and all these things. And he was very passionate about it. And I was surprised by it, but he's a very good conversationalist. He's very, very smart, and he is what people think Roger Stone is. Roger Stone's more of a kind of his own media creation. Steve Bannon, if he goes after you, as you showed in that clip, and that Frontline documentary is actually very good. And as you point out, Megyn, they are, despite being on PBS, consistently good. He's very effective. And I got a lot of pushback from the people that I worked for at the time about platforming. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that verb, as we used to call it.
You hate that word.
I hate it more than anything. It's like, it's interviewing. And well, you can't platform bad people. How do you know he's a bad person? Well, because other people have interviewed him. And I'm about to revisit that because at the same time, 4 years prior, he was Trump's campaign manager. And it was a really interesting thing. And he was, he loves the fight and was like, I have the Hunter Biden laptop stuff. Is right around that time. And he's like, you won't publish it. You don't have the balls to publish it. And it wasn't about me. It was the institution I worked for. Probably right. But yeah, I mean, I look forward to it too, because he's not someone who shrinks from a fight.
One thing, Megyn,
Right.
that I think that exchange highlights, and I don't know if it'll be totally worth exploring with him, but it's interesting for the rest of us Americans to try to remember, because most people have already forgotten, especially people who are not on the right. They're like, Trump, Murdoch, Fox, it's all the same. Like, no, dude. From 2015 to 2016, arguably the most interesting media story was Trump and the Bannonites taking on Roger Ailes. And Trump and Roger Ailes had a pre-existing relationship over the years. And Roger thought that he could, and Megyn, you will correct me, my mischaracterizations, but that he could sort of contain it, or at least Rupert Murdoch thought through Roger he could sort of contain the Trump problem. It was really advantageous and ballsy for Trump, regardless of what you think about the individual tactics, and I'm not a fan about the way they treated you or other people, but for Trump to say, no, I'm going against the Republican media establishment as well. I am such an outsider that I'm going to call Fox out. And it wasn't just you. You were the fulcrum at the beginning of it. But they went against Ailes, they went against Fox, and they won. And Fox ended up kind of being on their side because Fox has a conservative audience that liked Donald Trump. And so it was the first of many instances where Trump took on existing power centers on the right and more or less won that argument. And it was even at the 2016 Republican National Convention, that's when Ailes finally was defenestrated. It was like on the same night that Donald Trump gave his speech, Roger Ailes was impelled to resign. It's a remarkable story and not very well understood by journalists or people who have sort of a simplistic idea about the right.
Matt, I will never forget being at the Republican convention on that very night. And I knew very well behind the scenes what was happening with Roger Ailes and the accusations against him, because now, as the world knows, I was participating with the lawyer's investigation, and seeing Howie Kurtz come up on Fox News, my network that I was about to headline the coverage for that night in all of prime time, as Trump accepted the nomination, with a report about Roger being pushed out and the Me Too allegations against him. And it was all about me, that it had broken without my consent. I had not participated in this leaking at all, nor did I expect it to be happening at all, never mind that night. Talking about my allegations and suggesting, from Ailes, that they were untrue. It was the most jaw-dropping moment. I was in the midst of like this crazy convention where the Republicans were already so mad at me over the Trump debate question and then the ensuing onslaught. And then this breaks that I had, partnered with the investigation. I hadn't really backed Ailes. And my network has now turned on me openly because Roger was still calling the shots internally, attacking me on the air while I'm about to go out and headline the coverage, and then went on the air, and every single colleague I had turned their back on me. I mean, it was the most frosty, icy professional experience of my life. My close friends later apologized once they realized that there actually was a story behind Ailes, but it was one of the hardest days and professional experiences of my life. So I think back on that, and it is a little like trigger, right? All of it. But now with some distance between those events and today, I see, at least with Bannon's piece, what was going down and how effective he was at fighting. And, if you can, not everyone is great at this, and I don't know if I'm great at it either, but if you can remove yourself from the story, right? Like your personal feelings from the story, then you can see objectively this person's skills, and gifts. You could say, I think that's an appropriate word, and ask yourself, how can they be deployed in a way that will help the country? Like, forget Megyn Kelly. Who gives a shit whether I had bad coverage and yes, there were some threats that were real, which we managed, right? But I just think so much time has passed that all of that is irrelevant, at least to me. And I can't wait to have that, like a heart-to-heart about how it went down. I've heard Bannon. I've listened to his show a few times, and I know his theories about why I asked the question I asked and who may have been pulling those strings. And I've got very strong opinions on where he's wrong, and I'm happy to tell him. And so that's going to be part of the discussion, right? For once, we're going to come clean. And I'll tell him the answers to all of his questions about that moment and that whole saga. And hopefully he'll tell me the answers to mine. So anyway, for me, it's like a big thing. And I love that it's happening the day after the debate. Credit card rewards like cash back can empower families with some extra savings while they're dealing with the rising price of groceries and gas and all the rest of it. But our sponsor, the Electronic Payments Coalition, says some DC politicians are partnering with corporate megastores to take the cashback rewards away from families during skyrocketing inflation. Specifically, they say that the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would take billions from American families, lining corporate pockets instead. Learn more at electronicpaymentscoalition.org and see for yourself if you want to protect credit card rewards and tell DC politicians to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. That's electronicpaymentscoalition.org. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.